morning everyone. Myself Dr. Mukesh Mehla, Assistant Professor in Department of Cardiology, UN Mehta Institute of Research and Cardiology Center, Ahmedabad. Today's my topic is syncope, evaluation and management. Syncope is a symptom that presents with an abrupt, transient, complete loss of consciousness associated with inability to maintain postural tone with rapid and spontaneous complete recovery. The presumed mechanism is cerebral hypoperfusion. There should not be clinical features of other non-syncopal cause of loss of consciousness, for example, seizure, antecedent head trauma, or pseudosyncope. So, transient apparent loss of consciousness can be neurological or cerebral vascular disease, for example, epilepsy, vertebrobasilar transient ischemic attacks, metabolic syncope and coma, for example, hyperventilation with hypocapnia, hypoglycemia, hypoxemia, intoxication with drugs or alcohol, coma, or can be in psychogenic syncope, for example, anxiety or panic disorder, and in somatization disorders. So, syncope can be in acute illness and can be neural mediated syncope, for example, vasovagal syncope, in situational syncope, for example, in unpleasant stimuli, during coughing, sneezing, during defecation, post exercise, or carotid sinus hypersensitivity. It can be due to orthostatic, most commonly orthostatic syncope is due to medications, can be due to alcohol, volume depletion condition, for example, diuretics, dehydration, primary or secondary autonomic failure. It can be due to cardiac arrhythmias, mostly Brady and tachyarrhythmias. In Brady arrhythmias, sick sinus syndrome, AV blocks. In tachyarrhythmias, PSVT, ventricular tachycardias, and channelopathy like long QT interval. It can be due to structural heart disease, for example, aortic outflow obstruction in aortic stenosis and HOCM, or pericardial tamponade. Impact of syncope. 40% will experience syncope at least once in a lifetime. 1 to 6% of hospital admissions, 1% of emergency room visit per year, and 10% of falls by elderly are due to syncope. Neural mediated syncope, vasodepressive syncope, or vasovagal syncope is a most common syncope among all syncope at any age in any settings. Cardiac cause of syncope, especially Brady or tachyarrhythmias, are second most common cause, and cardiac causes are more in older age groups. Vasovagal syncope types. It are three types: vasodepressive, cardioinhibitory, or mixed. If hypotension secondary to peripheral vasodilation predominates, it is classified as vasodepressive. If bradycardia or asystole predominates, it is classified as cardioinhibitory. When both vasodepressive and cardioinhibitory, it is classified as mixed. So, vasovagal syncope is characterized by abrupt onset of hypotension with or without bradycardia. Trigger associated with the development of vasovagal syncope include orthostatic stress. It can occur during prolonged standing, hot shower, or emotional stress, for example, sight of blood. Has shown to run in families, and 3 genes have been associated. A large proportion of patients have psychiatric disorders. For example, when patient prolonged standing, so decreased venous return, so decreased left ventricular filling, and so decreased cardiac output. So at this time, increased sympathetic tone is increased. So during increased sympathetic tone, LV is hypercontractile, which is already underfilled. It leads to increased mechanoreceptor C fiber discharge, which leads to decreased sympathetic outflow and parasympathetic flow increase. So vasodilation and bradycardia, which leads to syncope. So firstly, there is sympathetic activation before a syncopal event, followed by sympathetic withdrawal, and followed by parasympathetic activation. So during initial sympathetic activation, to decrease sympathetic activation, beta blocker may help at this stage. All neurovasovagal syncope results from mechanoreceptor activation is not true. Like other conditions, sight of blood or extreme emotions can trigger syncope. It suggests that higher neural center also participate in syncope. For diagnosis of vasovagal syncope, initial examination, which include detailed patient history, physical examinations. Before prescribing any special test, we should take detailed patient history and examination. Then Holter monitoring, insertable loop recorder, and cardiac imaging, and HUDT test and electrophysiological test for further workup. So initial evaluation of patient with syncope, a detailed history and physical examination should be performed in all patients with syncope. The history should aim to identify the prognosis, diagnosis, reversible or ameliorable factors, comorbidities, and medications used. Maximal information can be obtained from clinical history when approached in a systemic and detailed manner. Following questions should be asked. Did the patient experience complete loss of consciousness? Was loss of consciousness transient with rapid onset and short duration? Did the patient recover spontaneously, completely, and without any sequel? Did the patient lose postural tone? If all questions answer is yes, then syncope is confirmed. If the answer to one or more of these questions is negative, then other causes of non-syncopal should be suspected. During initial evaluation should focus on these points. Determine whether the patient has a history of cardiac or metabolic disease, or identified medications used that can induce hypotension, bradycardia, heart block, arrhythmia, for example diuretics, vasodilators, beta blockers. Quantify the number and chronicity of previous syncope and pre-syncopal episodes. Identify the precipitating factors. What were the patient doing at the time of event? Quantify type and duration of prodromal and recovery symptoms. So, during history evaluation, in vasovagal syncope, demographic and clinical profile more common in female in younger age, and precipitating factor like long-term standing, emotional and warm rooms. In arrhythmia, more common in older male groups and during exertions, and history of family, cardiac disease or sudden cardiac death. In seizures, in younger age groups and can be in any settings. Psychogenic syncope is more in younger females and no triggers identify events. Premonitory symptoms during vasovagal syncope, there is a initial palpitation, blurred vision, nausea and lightheadedness. While in arrhythmia, there is shorter duration, less than 5 to 6 seconds, and palpitation is usually not common. In seizures, there is sudden onset and brief aura is present. It can be like olfactory, gustatory or visual. In psychogenic, usually premonitory symptoms are usually absent. During the event, in vasovagal syncope, patient become pale, diaphoresis, low BP and low pulse rate, and brief clonic movements can occur. While in arrhythmia, patient become blue and brief clonic movements can occur. While in seizure, patient is blue, frothing, and duration is prolonged. There is tongue bite, horizontal eye deviation, and BP and pulse are elevated, and there is tonic-clonic movements, and urinary incontinence is common. While in psychogenic, patient is usually normal, eyes forcefully closed, and BP and pulse is normal, no incontinence, and normal color. Residual symptoms in vasovagal syncope is most commonly fatigability. While in arrhythmia, no residual symptoms. In seizures, muscle ache and headache is usually common. In psychogenic, no residual symptoms. On physical examinations, we initially CVS examination should focus on whether structural cardiac disease is present or not. Look for hydration, neurological examinations for dysautonomia or CVA. Pulse and BP examination should be done in supine and standing position for orthostatic hypotension and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Carotid sinus massage for carotid sinus hypersensitivity. So other diagnostic tests like ECG and other Holter monitoring event recorders, HUDT, ATP and EPS. ECG and cardiac monitoring is ECG in initial investigation and should be done in all patients. A resting 12 lead ECG is useful. ECG provides information about the potential and specific cause of the syncopal episodes like bradyarrhythmias and ventricle tachyarrhythmias. It may demonstrate underlying arrhythmogenic substrate for syncope or sudden cardiac death like in WPW syndrome, Brugada syndrome, long QT, HOCM and arrhythmogenic right ventricle cardiomyopathy, which has a characteristic ECG features which can prompt the decision to pursue further evaluation. Cardiac imaging, 2D-ECO, if structural heart disease is suspected, then 2D-ECO is mandatory, and cardiac CT or MRI is also useful in few cases. If patient symptoms suggestive myocardial ischemia, stress test and coronary angiography can be done. Exertion can result in syncope in a variety of conditions including structural lesions, for example aortic stenosis and HOCM, pulmonary arterial hypertension, long QT type 1 and CPVT. In all these conditions, exertion can lead to syncope. So exercise stress testing in these conditions is useful to confirm the syncopal events. To evaluate selected ambulatory patient with syncope of suspected arrhythmic etiology, the following external cardiac monitoring like Holter monitoring, transtelephonic monitoring, external Roop recorder and patch recorder may be useful. Electrophysiological testing is not recommended for syncope evaluation in patient with normal ECG and normal cardiac structure and function unless arrhythmic etiology is suspected. It is a class 3 indication. It is recommended for if arrhythmic cause is suspected, such as abnormal ECG or structural heart disease or clinical history suggests or a family history of sudden cardiac death is present, then only EPS is used. During EP testing, if baseline or by drugs, example procainamide, bundle branch block, or and HV interval is more than 100 milliseconds, or either second or third degree heavy block occurs, it is a confirmative and patient may need pacemaker. Neurological tests like EEG, head CT, and MRI may help to diagnose seizures, rarely diagnostic for syncope. So, in briefly, detailed physical examination and detailed history is a class 1 indication, and if diagnosis is confirmed, no additional evaluation is needed. If initial evaluation is unclear, then we go for targeted blood testings, evaluate for neurogenic orthostatic hypotension, for reflex syncope. If it is suspected reflex, then we go for HUDT, and other tests like stress testing, transthoracic echo, EPS, MRI, CT, and Holter or ILR may be recommended. In HUDT, tilt table test, if the diagnosis is unclear after initial evaluation, tilt table testing can be useful for patient with suspected vasovagal syncope or patient have recurrent vasovagal syncope. Tilt table testing has been to evaluate patient with syncope for nearly 3 decades. It is an orthostatic stress test to assess the susceptibility of a vasovagal response to a postural change from a supine to an upright position. A positive response is defined as inducible pre-syncope or syncopal associated with hypotension with or without bradycardia. The hemodynamic response can be cardioinhibitory, vasodepressive, or mixed response. In protocol of HUDT, there is general consensus that tilt table angle of 70 degree for 30 to 40 minutes would provide a optimal yield. If at the baseline patient have no symptoms, then adjunctive agent such as low dose isoprenolol infusion or sublingual nitrate may improve sensitivity but decrease the specificity. The utility of tilt table testing is highest in patient with a suspected vasovagal syncope when syncope is recurrent. So, diagnostic yields in HUDT is around 27%, while it is more in history, physical examinations is around 40%, and in EP study it is less than 2 to 5%. So, in the management of vasovagal syncope, patient education of the diagnosis and prognosis of vasovagal syncope is recommended. All the patients with common faint or vasovagal syncope should avoid the precipitating events like prolonged standing, warm environment, and patients should give education about the premonitory symptoms so he can avoid the symptoms. And physical counter pressure maneuvers can be useful in patients with vasovagal syncope who have a sufficient long prodromal periods. So, physical counter pressure like leg crossing, abdominal contraction, squatting are a common management strategy. Midodrine is reasonable in patients with recurrent vasovagal syncope with no history of hypertension, heart failure, or urinary retention. So, when in second stage, when sympathetic outflow is decreased and parasympathetic flow is increased in vasovagal syncope, so midodrine is alpha agonist, so it helpful to ameliorate the reduction in peripheral sympathetic neural outflow. So, vasodepressive response not occurred and patient get benefit. The usefulness of orthostatic training, for example, 30 to 60 minute daily standing is useful in patient with recurrent vasovagal syncope. Fludrocorticosteroid might be reasonable for patient with recurrent vasovagal syncope and inadequate response to salt and fluid unless contraindicated. Beta blocker might be reasonable in patient 42 years of age or older with recurrent vasovagal syncope when sympathetic outflow is increased initially in vasovagal syncope. So, giving beta blocker it is useful. Increasing salt and fluid intake may be reasonable in selected patient with vasovagal syncope unless contraindicated. So, and in cardioinhibitory response group vasovagal syncope patients, dual chamber pacing might be reasonable if age is 40 years or older with recurrent vasovagal syncope and mainly cardioinhibitory response is there. So, in vasovagal syncope, class 1 indication is evaluation and diagnosis and prognosis, and education about the diagnosis and management to the patient is a class 1 indication. Other options like counter pressure maneuvers, salt and fluid intakes, other drugs, midodrine, fludrocorticosteroid, beta blockers orthostatic trainings, and dual chamber pacemaker as class 2A or 2B indication. So vasovagal syncope international study which evaluate the pacemaker therapy for severe cardioinhibitory tilt positive neural mediated syncope. In 42 patients, 19 patients has inserted dual chamber pacemaker while 23 had no pacemaker insertion, and primary outcomes were first recurrence of syncope. In 5% patient which have pacemaker inserted have recurrent syncope, while in those patients who have not pacemaker, around 61% recurrence rate is there. So dual chamber pacemaker therapy is beneficial in these patients. Carotid sinus syndrome, to confirm this, carotid sinus massage is done, which is 5 to 10 seconds, don't occlude carotid artery, and it is confirmed when 3 second asystole or 50 mmHg or more fall in systolic blood pressure is known as carotid sinus syndrome. Absolute contraindication is carotid brew, nons, previous CVA or MI in last 3 months. So in carotid sinus syndrome, if response is cardioinhibitory and dual chamber pacemaker is beneficial. And if in carotid sinus syndrome either cardioinhibitory or mixed response, if pacemaker inserted, then the recurrence rate of syncope is less than 9%, while those patients have not inserted pacemaker, recurrence rate of vasovagal syncope is 57%. Orthostatic hypotension, which is most commonly due to drug induced either diuretic or vasodilator. Primary autonomic failure can be multisystem system atrophy, Parkinson disease, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It can be secondary autonomic failure like amyloid, diabetes, and alcohol. For treatment of orthostatic hypotension, patient education is a class 1 indication. To diagnose if systolic blood pressure is more than 20 mmHg fall or diastolic more than 10 mmHg fall, it is confirmed orthostatic hypotension, and patient education is a class 1 indication. Other like compressive garments, counter pressure medications, midodrine, droxidopa, fludrocortisone is a class 2A indications. If a patient is taking drugs to withdraw the medications, and if patient is dehydrated, acute water ingestion, fluid resuscitation therapy is a class 1 indication. Few cases. For case 1, if a 35-year-old male, farmer by occupation, history of fall in a farm, 2 episodes in last 2 weeks, patient was seen by local doctor and referred to here for suspecting cardiac etiology. Patient come to OPD, what should be next? Either ECG, Holter, echo, or CT brain. So to precise any specific investigation, initially we should take detailed history of episodes, circumstances, and post-episodes period should be taken. In this patient, both episodes occurred after prolonged standing in a farm. Initially, patient had palpitation for a few seconds with sweating, lightheadedness, and blurring of visions. These prodromal symptoms are mainly in vasovagal syncope. Patient relative notice episodes, patient had complete recovery after couple of minutes. No urinary or stool incontinence, no involuntary limb movements, no tongue bites, no residual weakness, and no history of cardiac illness in patient or his family. So as per history, it was evident that patient had vasovagal syncope due to prolonged standing in arm. ECG was normal, echo was normal. Patient was admitted for further evaluation and to confirm the diagnosis of vasovagal syncope. As patient, we can already diagnose vasovagal syncope, but to confirm, HUDT was done to confirm the vasovagal syncope. In baseline, there is a pulse and BP was normal, and which is monitored for 10 minutes. Patient have no symptoms. Then we started HUDT and head up tilt with 70 degree, and after 20 minutes wait, there is no symptoms and BP is slightly raised but no bradycardia. Patient did not have symptoms during the passive phase of HUDT and no hypotension or bradycardia. So patient was subjected to drug provocation test. Patient was started on isopreludin infusion at 1 microgram per minute and gradually increased the dose till heart rate is achieved by 25% increase from baseline. After 5 minutes of isopreludin, patient started to having palpitation and sweating, followed by lightheadedness and blackout in front of eye. These symptoms were similar to episode that patient had experienced in his form. As patient was symptomatic, so test was stopped. So during isoprelin infusions, after 5 minutes, patient has symptoms, but at that time BP was normal and heart rate was increased. But initial patient after infusion of isoprelin, patient initially started symptoms, and at that time systolic BP was 40 mmHg decrease, but bradycardia was not occurred. Patient did not had bradycardia or arrhythmia at time of symptom. Systolic blood pressure was decreased by 40 mmHg. As patient has having typical history of reproducible symptoms of vasovagal syncope with no other identifiable cause, he was diagnosed to have a vasovagal syncope, and patient was discharged and educated to avoid prolonged standing, avoid dehydration, drink plenty of water with salt, and advised to sit down or lie down immediately if experience any prodromal symptoms. Case 2. A 70-year-old female presented with OPD with complaint of multiple episodes of blackout in last 3 months, with one of episodes leading to fall on ground. The episodes occurred while playing in ground after prolonged exertion. Patient had feeling of nausea with lightheadedness and blackout in front of eyes during playing in ground, after which she used to sit down in ground. During one of such episodes, she fell down in ground and became unresponsive for 2 to 3 minutes, after which she regained consciousness without any post-ictal confusion or phoconeurological deficit, no stool or urinary incontinence, no tongue bite, and ECG suggestive of normal, and so patient was evaluated for HUDT to confirm the vasovagal. So in HUDT, baseline was normal, and during passive phase when head was tilt up to 70 degree, patient started symptoms after 30 minutes, and BP is decreased in around 30 systolic mmHg, while pulse rate is also decreased. So on symptoms occurs, so test was stopped. Patient having giddiness with fall of BP after 30 minutes to head and elevation to 70 degrees, so test was terminated, and patient confirmed vasovagal syncope and advised to prolonged exertion, avoid and maintain hydration while playing. So vasovagal syncope, key is the detailed history, evaluations, and patient education about the prodromal symptoms is a key to maintain adequate lifestyle. Thank you.